Info out. All right. I don't have my intro video, which normally we would have an intro video, but I think we're live right now. All right. George Kellis, thanks for thanks for coming. Or where are you?
Thank you for having me on.
Where are you right now?
I am currently in Dallas, so I'm not too far out of the neighborhood. Still in the Texas Triangle.
Yeah.
But up here a little bit more north. Weather's pretty good today, pretty sunny. So been excited to wait out the apocalypse with much better weather than I usually would expect in West Virginia at this time of year.
So you normally are from West Virginia, right?
Yes, I'm born and raised in West Virginia. I'm actually a fourth generation Greek entrepreneur from Wheeling, West Virginia, which is pretty specific, but it has a lot to do with my thinking. And, I can trace my ethnicity back to my roots on the islands of Greece. I've got my family tree tied down pretty well on both sides, trying to understand, where I came from and what my people have cared about. And I care a lot about things like legacy and, really carrying on my family legacy. And if you didn't know, my dad was a sports broadcaster. He was a weatherman at the beginning of his career. Yeah. He was a radio and TV personality for decades and eventually started
Virginia,
his
right?
own. Up in West Virginia, AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's watchdog. I was live on Sundays from 3 to 4 p.m. I did a show for about 2.5 years between age 14 and 16 and really got the chance to... Oh,
that's right. You were doing the show, right?
Yes. So it was the George Kellis Show, named after my father's show. And that gave me my initial impressions with creating content, with interviewing people, and with public speaking. So I really learned a lot from that as kind of a pivotal thing at the beginning of my career. But that's something that I'm always working with people. By trade, I'm a marketer, so I do mainly videography. Videography is like my specialty, and I always try to help people tell their stories. And what's their legacy? What are they trying to do with their business? What are they trying to do with their family, with what they care about, and how does that play into the story?
George, where do we look up some of your videos and stuff while it's playing in the background?
GeorgeKellis.com/portfolio.
Okay. Oh, does it show up? Actually, doesn't.
George. Gotta hit the link.
All right, hold on.
Kellis.com/portfolio. You can see my father there on Google image results. He had the crazy curly hair, cool mustache.
Where's yours? Where's your curly hair?
It's there. It's just unfortunately there. I'd love to have a nice streamlined haircut for the Texas weather, but unfortunately,
dude, I need a grooming myself. But with this situation we're in, my hair is just growing out, but not in the places I want it to. But how did we meet? Do you remember?
Oh yeah. You want me to take it from the top?
So long as it's the truth.
So I was leaving Mud's place. Mud, otherwise known as Jared, is a couch surfing host.
Jared, right?
In Houston, Texas. He's one of the other super hosts. Incredibly nice guy. Showed me around to the museums. We hung out for 3 or 4 days when I was in Texas, and I had plans to potentially stay at your place for one more night or go directly to Austin. And I remember how it played out is I was just I had all this stuff that I had to unpack, and I was on this extended 5-month road trip, and at Jared's place I was reorganizing my stuff, and it was just taking me way too long, and I was half asleep trying to get everything, and Jared helped me out with it, and it just happened to be 10:30, and you hadn't gotten back to me about whether I could stay, and I just hit you up. I was like, yo, you want some tacos? I'm either getting tacos and coming to your place or getting tacos and headed to Austin. And we became pretty close friends, and we both had a lot of mutual interests. And I planned to stay one night, but ended up staying a week. And that was...
Remember, you stayed a week. You met a lot of people. We had a violinist. Remember the violinist who came over?
Yeah. No, I forget the guy's name off the top of my head.
He was from Japan. No, he was Japanese, but American, right?
Japanese. He was
British.
He was from the Isles, and I think he was Japanese ethnically from his origin. But this guy was. No, his name was Hugh or Lou. I think it's Hugh, Fiddle Hugh, I believe is his handle on Instagram. But this gentleman was a top-notch violinist. I got to meet half of your family. I got to meet friends. I got to meet other couch surfing hosts.
Amazing, man.
Really got to meet a lot of people. And one thing you'll be excited about, I talked to Casey Gould just a few days ago of the Food Music Life travel and food show, as well as that food truck that you see over at Axelrad. And he is ready to hit the ground running. They've got
documentary. How do you spell his name?
Casey, Casey.
Casey.
Last name Guhl.
Guhl. And he's got a food truck, right?
Yes, that's him right there. He's got the food truck.
What's it called? Greenhouse. Is it called Greenhouse Cater?
No. It's Food, Music, Life.
Food, music, life. Let's see what this is about. Roaming hunger.
This looks like an article on them.
Okay, but this is his food, right?
Yeah.
No.
He does food for a variety of things, catering, and then right out of the food truck, they have the art on the back of the truck. So it's a very cool truck. This guy's very passionate about food. Got the chance to work with him on some extra clips that they had missed when they were creating the documentary series. So last time I was in Houston, got to shoot with them, and I'm super excited you guys are doing the studio stuff too. We talked to Casey a week ago, and he was ready to jump into it. And
hey,
I'm
look
not
at that.
surprised to hear that either of you guys are hitting it full force, but glad to hear that. Glad to hear that you're both jumping into it. Definitely got to do an interview soon.
That's Adam Brackman from Axelrad.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
so there's a connection there.
One of those clips I shot down. I see one on the right side with him looking off to the left.
Okay, right here.
Yeah. I shot that last time I was in Houston.
Oh, is that your video?
I think September I came to visit. Yep.
Let's pull it up while it's playing in the background. So we met from couch surfing.
Oh yeah.
I met a lot of my girlfriends that way. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. It's not for that. Listen, I wanted to, for a while, I wanted to talk to you because I love the energy that you bring, and people love your energy. You're very eloquent. I want to learn from that. You have a way with words. Do people tell you that?
Yes. I mean, I've kind of got the linguistic side of things inherited a little bit. The voice. I've worked on it, but I feel like I inherited that. A lot of the passion for language I got from my family when I was a kid.
That's right. You were on radio, right?
I was on radio, but also when I was a kid, my dad tried to teach me Greek. He had me go to Greek lessons. I didn't learn a lot of Greek, but I did get to start learning about language and about root words and what do words mean. And later on in life, at some point, I got more interested in diving into my own thinking in a way that allowed me to articulate what I actually meant. Yeah. And a lot of the time, you can't understand what your own viewpoint is unless you say something out loud. So I might say, I am an entrepreneur, but I know people that do business, and I've asked them, hey, are you an entrepreneur? No answer. So certain people identify with these different things, and I think that somebody that's just generally curious, interested in a lot of different fields. I love linguistics. I love debate. I love taking devil's advocate. I love disagreeing with myself.
Absolutely.
Taking different angles to try to convince people.
Let me ask you something. Do you know Corey Totally? He's one of our couch surfers in the neighborhood.
I think I've heard the name, but I don't think I know him.
He says hi. Michelle, my sister, she says hi to you.
What's up, everybody?
You probably can't see the text coming in. But listen, do you practice NLP?
I'm familiar with NLP. I think a lot of NLP is similar to cognitive behavioral therapy. Mm-hmm. And it allows you to see kind of what are the details here. And one of my favorite things from NLP is the beliefs model, where they draw this circle and a bigger circle and a bigger circle. It looks like a big bullseye. But on the inside of that is your beliefs. And as you go down, somebody might have an opinion, but if it disagrees with some of their own philosophy, their internal philosophy, they might never be able to chisel down into it to have a rock solid core of an opinion. And you could write a 20-page paper, but if it's got no thesis, what are you defending? What are you attacking? And as I told you earlier when we were chatting, I've had people call me out for that. I made a post and then kind of got lost on what the topic was halfway through the comments. And it's easy to get derailed. It's easy to get derailed.
Absolutely. Hell, even with this video chatting and stuff, being on the spot with live, I'm doing this because it challenges. It's very challenging. But it's like a muscle. You have to work it out and you get stronger and better at it, right?
Oh yeah. From experience, I remember the first couple of shows I did that were talk, and they weren't fantastic. I learned a lot, but by the fifth show, I was like, man, I really got a grip on this. I got some momentum. Yeah. I think I got the hang of what it takes to do a talk program. And then, 50, 100 episodes later, there were times where, I might not have a co-host for the day, and I did the entire 60 minutes by myself. And I'm like, man, now I'm producing. At that point, I was producing an hour of content a week compared to my dad, who was producing 15 hours of fresh content per week on the radio. So I don't know if I'd ever want to have that job, but I've got the studio in-house. This is kind of like my desk, but I've got the studio right next to me. I'm super excited to get things rolling and be doing more interviews in Dallas as time goes on. And it's soon as the quarantine lifts, you might see us in masks, but we'll be doing interviews ASAP. Very excited for it.
So real quick, COVID has affected you, right? I mean, like everyone else, right? It's affected our business, our livelihood. Are you adapting? Do you feel like it's making you stronger because you're gonna have to adapt?
I think if you answer no to that question, you're missing out on some of the point of like having extra free time. In my mind, I'm like, man, I've got this tolerance for work and I've got to work X number of hours a day or else I feel like I'm unfulfilled and I haven't accomplished the things I wanted to do for the day. But if you're living a worse life now, in some ways, you can't help. You can't expect people that didn't have any savings to be feeling really great right now.
The people who are check to check, right? I mean,
it's a huge bummer. And I was check to
businesses, right? Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm going to do next. I just have to wait until somebody tells me I can either go do business again or go have my job back. And based on what I was doing before, my job might not come back because it's very interpersonal and I was interacting with people directly. So it might not be back first thing. So it's a huge bummer. But I'd say on the philosophical side of things, I've had more time and more clarity than ever diving into the things that really mattered to me. And one thing I did recently is I parsed out what are all the things that I own and why. And I know that we've both talked about minimalism in the past. And a few years ago, I tried to put everything that I own in a spreadsheet.
Wow, that's incredible.
It wasn't exactly effective. And I'm a young guy. I don't own that many things. Let me be straight with you. I don't have thousands of things. And some things aren't even worth putting in a spreadsheet. If I got 10 books, maybe those go in the book spreadsheet instead of in just everything I own spreadsheet.
Yeah.
But what I did more recently was I put into place, like, what are the things that I'm doing? What are the groups of things that I have? I wanted to buy 3 things at once. And I'm like, man, I'm super broke. So instead of sitting here in misery, like, oh, I can't buy anything or afford food, I wrote out what are the big categories of things that I want to invest in. And then I put in everything that I had in black and everything that I didn't have in red in a mind map. And you could see kind of each category. Maybe I don't have these things now, but I do have 1 or 2 of these things. Maybe my roommate's got some of those things. Maybe I don't need to buy a toaster because he's got one, but I could buy a crock pot because neither of us have one.
You're talking about to survive this situation.
I'm talking about just rethinking what matters to me, because anytime something like this happens, anytime there's a limit on things like toilet paper, the number one thing that you can do to be stronger out of that toilet paper situation is buy a bidet. If you own the house,
right? I've seen that.
And you don't be weak as heck when it comes to, oh, I'm out of toilet paper. What are you going to do? Like, come on. Like, I bought a 6-pack of toilet paper in January, and I'm on the last roll.
Wow.
I took a month off of toilet paper in January before any of this started. I was like, this is a crappy product. I realized that I was using toilet paper to blow my nose more than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm allergic to cats. We got a cat. And I'm like, man, like, I'm not gonna just sit by and accept that toilet paper is a cornerstone of like American life. We got to have toilet paper or else we can't survive. The prepper's got 1 million rolls already. Dude, I'm still on that last roll, and I'm not worried about running out. Yeah. I switched to wipes, way better than toilet paper. That's a whole other debate. But the short of it is, if a bird pooped on your hand, would you wipe it off or would you wash it off? Would you wipe it with a piece of paper or would you wash it off?
That's true. I remember seeing an Indian friend from South Asia. She posted up a video of some guy washing dishes, and he's like, "You're washing them with water, right? You're not using just dry paper to clean your dishes." Yeah, it's a great argument to using bidets.
So the bidet makes sense. Having wet wipes, flushable wet wipes instead of toilet paper makes sense. Then I just bought tissues instead of toilet paper to blow my nose. And wow, with a little bit of consumer difference behavior, I dodged the bullet of just not having toilet paper. I don't want to use my hand or like dip it in water. That's a little gross. I'm not at that level. Like if you sent me to a country that didn't have modern plumbing, honestly, I wouldn't be as bulletproof as I sound right now.
Yeah, I understand that. Hey, have you ever used? Let me show you. What do you call those?
Squatty potty?
No, it's the damn it, this thing is slow. The squatting toilets. Have you ever used these?
It's a squatty potty.
Well, the squatty potty is an accessory, right?
Oh, where you stand on the toilet.
Right. No, it's just a flat in a hole in the ground.
On the toilet. Ooh, no thanks. I've used a squatty potty. I have a family member with one that let me use it, and hey, it's not a bad device.
Well, I remember being I think in Hong Kong they have these, in China, Beijing. I avoided them entirely, man. I know they're healthy for you, I'm sure, like the squatty potty, right?
It's not American enough. Just add some America to it. It needs a back. It needs to look like a throne.
No, we need to put a bullseye in there and actually look like we're shooting.
Oh yeah, hey, it's known to clean up messes in public urinals. So
man, that's incredible. So yeah, that's a challenge for me to use. Hey, but you know what? Think about it. If you're 80 and you're still going to the restroom like this, you're having to get in that position. That's pretty much like daily yoga for some people.
Yeah. Good point. I mean, I heard recently, you know, if you put like a bar on I'm going to stand desk right now. I can sit or stand at this desk. Somebody was saying that they put like a level so you could let your leg lean on it, so you could let your hips drop and keep better posture when you're in between sitting and standing. And the key isn't just to be standing all the time. I get plantar fasciitis faster than anybody, and I've got a spike ball under my desk right now to try to work on that. And that's basically when you have extra muscle and tendon strain in your feet. I was doing a job that required me to stand for hours and hours at a time. I didn't take very long breaks, and when I did, I wasn't sitting. So
you get sore?
Yeah, your feet get sore, your ankles get kind of annoyed. But here's the key. Here's the ergonomics key to almost anything with ergonomics, and I always run back to this same thing. It's you need to have multiple postural positions. You need to have multiple options. It can't just be sit or stand.
Yeah.
Maybe you put a box under your desk, and when you're sitting, you could put your feet up either on it or lean against it, and you've got 3 different postural positions. If you only have one chair, I would suggest buying, let's say you have an office chair, I would suggest buying a backless chair. Right now I have just a backless chair and plan on buying an office chair soon once the
These backless chairs?
My backless chair is literally a piano bench with a blanket on it.
Which one is it here? Oh, you can't see it. I'm sorry. Let me bring it in. Any of these?
Pretty similar to something like that. You know, having something where you have to keep core support while you're sitting is going to make it so you keep posture differently. So
you're not talking about these ones with the knees?
No, nothing too fancy. A stool.
Okay.
A stool would be fine. If you can sit at a stool for a couple hours a day, if you can sit in a comfortable chair with a back for a couple hours a day, maybe on the couch for a couple hours a day.
Dude, I chill back. I'm lazy as fuck. Look at this. I'm just chilling back and, you know. So, yeah.
I got some real postural issues in my upper back, and being a nerd, got nerd neck, video editing and playing.
Oh, this neck? When you go, you're leaning forward, right?
A lot of the time I'm sitting here just like this, just like I am right now, looking into my computer. So I got this one on the desk.
Yeah.
I have a 55-inch monitor behind me up on the wall, and then another monitor over here. So, you know, if I'm going to work over here, I should orient my body differently. Dude, if you're inside for long periods of time right now, and I think a lot of people are, now is probably the wake-up call for a lot of people to care about ergonomics because you're probably in pain. I feel really bad for you if you can't afford food, but you also can't afford good ergonomics. But I don't think a lot of this stuff is that expensive. Get to Goodwill, find a stool. Maybe reupholster it. Maybe put your own cushion on the stool. Maybe buy one for $20, $30, and you'll have another place to sit and better posture for, you know, the foreseeable future while you're at your desk, especially if you're working from home.
So one of the things I want to do is bring you in because we wanted to talk about the theme of the day. Cool. Actually, let me go into, where do we go? Capture, screen capture. So with our page Mod Movement, which is not strictly political, it's about a lot of stuff. One of the things that came up to me was this. Do you see that on your screen?
Yeah.
Imagine you're quoting someone. Someone doesn't like what you're doing, right? And you tell them, hey, this probably isn't for you. I wish you well, right? Do you feel like that sometimes we should practice saying that to people, and we should practice hearing that from people? Just because you're offended by something, it might not be for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, you don't even have to get offended. Think about it in 2 ways. There's a couple ways that you can be offended. You can be directly offended, which on a personal level, you can decide how much that offends you. And then you could be offended by proxy for somebody else. And somebody will see that and put themselves in the scenario, and they'll seethe with anger. What if somebody told me this wasn't for me? What does that mean? Taken very literally, I think that's a much healthier way to end a lot of conversations than they usually end. Look at threads on Facebook, man. People are on there because these algorithms manipulate them into an emotional state. Facebook knows how to line up your news feed. So you see something you agree with, you see something that you disagree with right in the spot where you're most likely to throw the book at somebody. They don't care about your emotions. Any social media network that doesn't have a chronological feed is using you and doesn't even care slightly about your privacy. You are the product.
Yeah,
and
the
more time you spend on Facebook, it's unlikely
learning
to spend
you, right?
I mean, you want it to be learning, and there are good links that circulate on Facebook, but by the nature of social media, people are twice as attracted to disagreements as they are to agreements. People are twice as averse to loss as they are to. People go on Facebook literally to vent their opinions. And one thing that I try to not do, I try not to just like lay bait out there for people. Sometimes I'll critique an article where I'm like, oh, I hope that somebody that really holds this position comments so I can try to critique them. They can critique me. We both sharpen our logic. But so many of these conversations are people that are unwilling to take the step to care about you as a person. They care about their opinion. They've got to defend their opinion, but they just hope that spewing it out there is going to be a good way to, relate to the information that you have. And when it comes to something like, say, coronavirus, a lot of, you could shake hands and say we agree to disagree. But I think that what that post is saying is more of like a categorical thing. So maybe being a moderate is not for you, and the best thing to do is just to walk away. Maybe you have to check yourself and say, this thing that I'm learning about isn't for me. Maybe I'll treat it like a grain of salt, like everything else, but I'm not going to identify with it.
Corey, who we talked about earlier, he says his approach, and I think I understand what he's saying. He's saying, instead of saying this is probably not for you, you could say, hey, this is, you can't tell people what's good for them or not, maybe. But maybe the better way to say this is probably not for me. I wish you well, though. Like, good luck, enjoy. Yeah. Like square dancing. Square dancing, I remember having to do that as a kid in elementary school. I think it's good that it's around. I think it's an art form. I think it's a culturally, it's historical. But it's probably not for me. But I want you to continue doing it.
Right, and we're able to see that when it comes to other people's hobbies. They say don't go out of your way to say like you don't like something that somebody else likes. Just shh. Let people like their things. Let people like it. Let people like their stuff. And I think that's a very libertarian perspective. And from a guy that likes to critique culture, I understand now that what that means is if I have a critique of something, I can pose a good critique. But if you go out there and go out of your way to see somebody liking something just to shit on them, that is extremely impolite, and you probably wouldn't do that in real life.
You probably wouldn't.
People are willing to do so many things that they wouldn't do in real life on Facebook and on the internet. I try to give people the benefit of the doubt and assume that if I had a conversation with them in person, in real life, that they would be respectful. They would try to understand my point of view, and they wouldn't shout at me or leave the conversation fuming, because that rarely happens in real life. And when it does, it's usually premeditated. Somebody just wants to chew you out because of your opinion, and they can't manage it within themselves. So the only way for them to feel right and feel secure in their opinion is to belittle the opposite opinion. And so conveniently are the Democrats and Republicans holding opposite opinions on things. But when you give them a $2 trillion stimulus bill, 96-0 vote, they all vote for it. I wonder how that works. You finally got them to agree on something, and it was giving everybody money. Wonder how that happened.
Man.
That's the sad thing, is like when it gets into a federal level of politics, it can get ugly really fast. And at a local level, you should be able to talk to the people around you, talk to your neighbors. I remember in 2016, I couldn't wrap my head around Trump. I didn't particularly like or dislike him. I was like, this guy's weird. Why does he have an appeal? I liked him on The Apprentice. Why is he running for president?
Right.
And I had a neighbor who I thought was a Democrat. Like, I was like, oh, this guy's...
I thought that about a lot of people who voted for him, yeah.
He had a Trump sticker, and I had to ask him about it. And you know what he did? He explained his viewpoint. And that's radical today. For what reason? I don't know, man. It's frustrating that people feel so pressured by other people that they won't share their opinion in the first place. Mm-hmm. I find myself sometimes either taking moderate stances or not even developing opinions on subjects because I know that it's going to cause me personal strife until I've reviewed the entire thing. And then I'm going to have the 5 people on my friends list that I like as people that are not willing to keep me as a friend because they disagreed that firmly with it, that they think less of me now because I disagree with them. And I'm sorry, same thing in reverse. I can't hold that standard to somebody else.
So a couple months ago, I don't know if you saw the post. I posted that I was an atheist, right? Okay. At this time in my life, and it might change. It's fair to change. I mean, that's cool. And I want to just connect with other atheists just to see who's out there. Like, raise your hand if you're an atheist. I want to see you guys out there. And I actually lost friends. I don't know. They removed me. I marked it. From the day I posted the post to a couple days later, I lost friends.
That's unbelievable. Hold them to their own standard here. What would Jesus do? I'm certain it wouldn't be that. It wouldn't be that. It wouldn't be if Jesus found a doubter. If he found somebody that doubted his authority or whatever, he would talk to them and try to like maybe convert them, maybe just give them a different viewpoint. Maybe he wouldn't shove it down their throat. Man. Meanwhile, it's easy for us to literally sever our connections, maybe not fully, but to partially sever our connections with other people other than consider that they might have a different point of view. And going back to NLP, this is at the center. This is at beliefs. I went to church for years, and only when I stopped going to church did anybody ever ask me anything about religion. Because at that point, they had to consider, this guy left. You know, maybe they took that a little bit further and said, oh, this guy's not going to go to heaven now. Then they maybe took it further and said, now this guy's going to hell. Then maybe they said, my friend is going to hell. Then they said, this guy left, and now my friend's going to hell. And now it's hard to, you know, go back without talking about religion, which is coming from people that just never, ever, not even once brought it up before. And now it's like, you know, they feel a concern for it. And I understand the sympathy. I don't think it's wrong. I don't think anything there is wrong. But there are so many judging Christians that put themselves in the shoes of God and then take it a step further where they use that to cut people out of their lives. And, oh, man, that is just a huge bummer because I learned so much from other religions. I would not really call myself an atheist, but on Hawking's scale, I would be like somewhere between like 1 and 10% chance that a God of some kind exists.
Yeah, it's possible.
I'm more of like an agnostic.
George, is there a subject that is very popular or trending, but you don't have a lot of knowledge about it? Do you have anything out there that strikes that you can think of? Just a subject matter.
I'm going to say that's
abortion. How about abortion?
I think I know too much.
Do you know a lot about abortion? I'm not saying you're an expert, but do you know a good amount with abortion?
I know enough to discuss it.
Okay, we're not going to discuss abortion, but I'm trying to find a subject that you don't know a lot about. What about China? China's history, 100 years of humiliation from when it signed the treaty with England. Do you remember that?
Oh, man. England was really doing some crazy stuff.
Colonialism, right?
The Opium Wars, man.
The Opium Wars, right.
Chill.
So do you know much about that?
I know a little bit about the Opium Wars.
Okay, so that's not the point. We're not going into that. I'm trying to find something where you probably don't know a lot about. So if someone brings up that conversation, how do you handle? Do you still spout a position, or do you honestly say, you know what, I don't know enough about that?
I mean, if somebody comes up to me and tries to say, I have a 3 out of 10 knowledge on this subject, and you have a 2 out of 10 knowledge on this subject, I'm going to school you. That doesn't exist. Like, it's just two dummies talking to each other that should start on Wikipedia before they really hash it out. Now, if somebody is my superior in a subject, I'm a great listener. I try to learn as much as possible. Let's say somebody disagrees with me, but they have much more knowledge than me, and they're going to wipe the floor with me on a subject. I'm going to spend most of the time listening, trying to understand their viewpoint, trying to put my preconceptions after their interpretation.
Corey's said, "Do you know much about childbirth, giving birth?"
I mean,
or what a woman experiences.
From a personal perspective, no. From what a woman experiences, no. But I will say, given that my mom was an OBGYN doctor during the time that I grew up, I did get lectured more than once in kindergarten for mentioning the uterus as a body part, even though we didn't go over any other internal organs. I remember in first grade, I brought my pathology textbook from my grandfather into class, and the teacher said never to bring it back in again.
Were there photos or drawings?
Oh, there were photos of like mutated kids and shit. Wow. And I was like sharing this with my 6-year-old, 7-year-old peers, and I was told not to bring that book back to class.
Man.
Yeah, it was. I've had no reason to really read that since, but learning about viruses and bacteria and pathology and health, I came from a health family in different ways, and with my mom as a nurse and my paternal grandfather.
And radio media, right?
I would say my family is pretty heavily in the PR skill set. Both my parents have had PR jobs. Almost everybody in my family works with people. Yeah. And they really like people, and they really care for people, and they genuinely want other people to do well, and they serve the community for generations now. And I feel like I got a little bump of each.
Yeah, that's great. So, George, going forward, you see that we're going to be opening up the country steadily. Some countries some states a little bit faster and more aggressively. Mm-hmm. This is not to hold you to a prediction, but what do you feel is possible? What do you think is going to happen?
Oh man, I think
second wave.
So here's the one some people aren't going to hear. Some people will not want to hear this. A month from now, we're going to look back, and I think we're going to say, why in the world would we ever do that? Why did we do that? We overreacted through like a series of emotional things, and there are so many similarities with social justice and social distancing. I think it's a little bit more than uncanny, and I think that a lot of what people are being told and what people are spreading around is frankly misinformation. When the government takes the steps to put themselves in a pothole, like their car's stuck in the pothole while the virus is ravaging everything, and their solution is to shut it all down because they acted too late, and then to wreck the economy in the meantime, and then send bailouts to their buddies. And I think that whole thing was just, it went under the rug. Like, yeah, we got to pay rent.
We can't argue reactive, with this. Right?
Yeah, and people are arguing, now you're trying socialism. This is wealth redistribution, and it is wealth redistribution. But the problem is, nobody signed up for this. The government decided to shut things down. And I think that the entire time we could have realized that we would have gotten a lot of those same benefits from social distancing by letting people that were at risk social distance, giving them the money that they need to not go anywhere and not contract the disease, and then let people who needed to work or chose to work continue to work. Let small businesses operate. This is killing. We'll look back 2 months from now and see how many of our favorite restaurants have died.
Yeah,
and ask ourselves, we're going to lose a lot of commerce. And here's the saddest part about all of it is that when we decided to hold economic progress back, we decided to hold health progress back. I mean, a week into the problem, I had friends from second world countries, like developing nations, sending me pictures of their entire their entire cities or towns attacked trucks that were carrying food in or out of town.
What countries you're thinking about?
Nobody had food to eat. I was thinking South Central America. I believe my friend was in Colombia at the time, but he was showing a video from across Colombia where somebody was, there was a group of people attacking a truck for some food, and these supply chains go to all these other nations, and supposedly the number that I heard was 500 million. 500 million people are now living in poverty, back below the absolute poverty line, because of the full economic slowdown. So it didn't just affect the lives of people at risk in the States, and I think the sheer numbers of it aren't going to add up in a month. I think that if let's say 200,000 was the expected death toll, 100,000 was the preventable death toll, 50,000 was like the actual. If we only end up saving 50,000 lives from the social distancing measures, but on the same hand, we ruin the economy enough to stop a much higher, let's say millions of millennial births, I think are going to be stopped because of this economic slowdown. People don't have more kids because they're indoors. Yes, maybe they have more sex, maybe they have more unprotected sex, but they have kids because the economy's good. They can
right, that tends to make people have more kids.
That's the problem with it is, even if you're looking at the sheer life count, and nobody's sitting out there hoping that people die, and if you are, you should really rethink what your thought process is. But it's really sad that there are secondary and tertiary effects to this, that it's so easy for people to social justice, throw under the rug, and now we don't have to worry about the people that didn't get to go to the hospital for any other condition for the last 6 weeks. The pressure this is going to put on the healthcare system for the next couple of years as all of our appointments are pushed back. Maybe this will have other unintended consequences, even with health, where the people that were most at risk might not be able to get the healthcare that they need or to be able to get the things that they need. Right now, I'm not eating super fancy food. I'm not eating the healthiest food off the shelf. Turning my mic up on, because I don't have the budget for food that I did right before this happened. In almost all of their health markers, I can't go to the gym. It's hard to get out. From all health perspectives, my health has gone down.
Yeah.
Due to the lockdown, and on a personal level, I'm like, okay, pros and cons. I'd rather be working right now. I'll find a way around it. I'll find a way to not be broke. In worst case scenario, I have to move back in with my family and save up and then move out again, which would be a huge bummer. Because right now, I applied for unemployment weeks ago. No idea if I'm getting it. The system's too slow. So I think we're realizing a lot of secondary and tertiary effects are coming from the economic shutdown side of things, and that we can have both. A month from now, I think we're going to say, next time we're going to get both health and economics out of this. We can have the best of both worlds. One of my favorite authors, Peter Diamandis, does the X Prize. They're these crazy prizes that incentivize people to make technological innovations. And this guy says, when presented a yes or no choice, when presented an A and B choice, choose both. So not all the time, but in this scenario, I think it's both. I mean, the economy is what allows us to be healthy. I think in a lot of ways. It was the economic innovation, it was the health innovation over the age of machines and now in the age of technology that is allowing people's lifespans to go up. And things like shutting down work for months, I mean, this cannot be helpful to people's mental health. You've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of people scarred for life.
I mean, it might not be this person never leaves their house again, but man, this might permanently affect things like serotonin and dopamine levels. And I'm sure, if nothing else,
new anxiety's going to come out,
anxiety, depression. If you're stuck inside all the time, it's hard not to be depressed. I mean, I don't really get that depressed, but like I could tell when my serotonin's down. I could tell when I feel bad. I could tell when I need to go outside and get sunlight. I have a light right here. It replicates sunlight.
You got one of those lights?
Oh okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. Nice. I like my light. I got lots of lights in here. But the secondary things that affect us, I think, are going to be a lot bigger than the just, quote, not getting the disease thing. And at the very least, if our government is not prepared to test and give us accurate data, I don't think they're prepared to shut down the economy next time. And I think that we'll see years from now that the economic shutdown is going to cause exponentially more damage than the social distancing saved lives.
We don't have a playbook for this, right? There's no instruction, no manual. We got to try something, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have to do whatever it takes to allow people to live a quality of life with both health and wealth that exceeds the quality of past generations. I think that's kind of the natural order, is we try to make the world a better place for the next generation. And I know this ignores a lot of other factors like nukes, like climate. There's a lot of other things that could come back and bite us, but when it comes to viruses and pandemics, man, I found myself in a precarious position when I was praising George Bush, a guy that I've critiqued heavily. Man, he sounds silly a lot of the time when he talks, and I've always given him crap for it. And he was on it. He read a book about the Spanish flu, and he was flying somewhere and said, let's not let this happen again. Yeah. He put things in place, and again, and I'm not good enough at speaking foreign politics to want to. But I'm very, very skeptical of China, specifically for the reason.
Yeah, there's something there.
Why would they give us that crap? Why would they do that to the rest of the world? That can't just go under the rug. I mean, it's not the people of China; it's the Chinese.
It's the CCP.
100%.
I ran a poll on our page where we asked people. Let me see if I can show it real fast.
What's worse, Trump's response to the CCP?
Okay, so we actually asked people. Let's see where it's at. Come on.
Oh man, I heard there was a poll that said 60% of liberals think that Trump is more responsible for this than China, and I mean I'm not a huge Trump fan still. But
I don't think that's the case, man. He could have done better. I'm sure he could have done better.
Oh yeah, he could have followed in Bush's footsteps, surprisingly enough, and done a better job. But we kind of kicked it under the rug. That's not going to happen. Let's invest trillions of dollars into having this giant war force just in case something happens. But we'll shut the economy down because we didn't prepare for this disease. And what can you do to prepare? I mean, you could have more test kits. You can have more ventilators ready to go. If the whole scare was about ventilators in the first place, what are we still cooped up for? And I could see if somebody needs to isolate until the disease is passed. I could see if you've got the funds and you're at enough risk where if you want to spend 6 months, stay indoors, make sure that you don't get it, limit contact, have your groceries delivered, and sanitize every box once it gets to your door. You can live that way. But unless you're already out in the hills growing your own food, you're going to have a very, very hard time staying away from this disease that looks like a lot of us might already have it. So,
hey, listen, there's a bug I noticed when I go into the screen sharing, but I'll fix that with the next call. I think I know what it is. But I'm going to show you the poll that we ran, and you can and I'll come back to you, okay? So let me show it to you first.
Cool, and I got to run in about 5 minutes.
So we have the Corona COVID and then the CCP virus, obviously China virus and Rona, whatever. I'm actually liking the CCP virus. I'm okay with that. It doesn't bother me.
I kind of started saying that already because it's just so unethical of them to leave us with this big of a problem. And when the rumor was that they were doing it just to prove that they could keep up with the U.S. and Israel at destroying these bioweapons, it's embarrassing. I mean, if we find out this came out of a lab, I think China should be held accountable. I don't really know enough about things on that scale to suggest a good solution. But if we had to print $2 trillion just to dig ourselves out of the hole, and we owe them 10 plus trillion of our $22 trillion in debt,
balance it out.
Maybe we can come to an agreement.
We'll write that off. So my position on that is that we don't know enough yet. It's possible, anything that's possible, but we got to take care of what we can right now. But maybe there needs to be some talks and some investigation. See what happens.
I mean, at the very least. And right now, there are so many crazy things coming out that are vying for your attention, especially while you're all stuck at home. I know 1 million people aren't watching us live right now, but it's been one day after another. It goes coronavirus, and then we had the Kim Jong thing. Where's Kim? Is he ill? I don't know. And then now it's there was something released today about like UFOs that part of like the Pentagon released something or other that I don't know. I don't give a fuck about UFOs. That's like this is my last. I don't even care about the coronavirus disease. Like I'm fairly convinced that I've already gotten it. I basically shook hands. I interacted face to face and handed out a sample of a very cool product from a local startup at grocery stores. Over 1,500 individuals I talked to, probably more. There were groups, so it was probably double that. It might have been 2,000, 3,000 people.
What did you have the antibodies in, right?
I got sick in the middle of February. I had dry cough. I had light fever. I didn't go to work for a couple of days. Stayed home. Got better. But that like thousands of people between the beginning of February and the middle of March. And since then, I've literally interacted with 2 non-food related individuals since. So I've been cooped up at home since the lockdown started here on March 15th. I've just been at home or at the park. I bought a folding chair and hang out there and don't touch anything and don't talk to anyone. But I think that there's a lot going on, and it's easy to get distracted by some of these bigger international or national issues.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I would say the more important stuff to focus on is your own health, your family's health, securing next month's rent, figuring out how you're gonna live differently in the future. Maybe taking inventory on some of your assets. What do you have? What things do you have that can help you? What things are holding you back? And
what can you get rid of?
Yeah, whether it be physical, mental, emotional. This amount of stress is going to exacerbate some of the symptoms that people have already had.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to
realize,
this is the tipping point on this. This has got to go. I haven't used this boat in 2 years, my small fishing boat, selling that. Maybe you've got like crap out in the garage, and maybe it's not just stuff that you don't use. Maybe it's beliefs that don't benefit you any longer. Maybe people are realizing, my absolute trust in the government is not going to turn into something perfect.
And maybe I was too dependent on the supply chains, and maybe I need to balance it out more. That's where I feel,
Yeah, I think China is a great country, but for them to put themselves in a position where they lie to us, they hurt us, and we have to.
Well, they lie to their own people, right?
Yeah, you can't expect them to tell us the truth. I mean, especially at this national stage, it's all information, misinformation. I think I think there's no room for globalism. I used to want globalism so bad. I was like, that's a great idea. I think as soon as we get globalism, we delete culture. And then we end up with powers that are so big that they are so many steps removed from the little guy that they won't make decisions that affect the world in a positive manner. And I think that the further away you get from the individual, the further it gets from understanding the needs of the individual, of the community, of the street, of the town. And people are always like, let's change the world. That's a young man's game. Yeah. You change the world because of many, many years of hard work, because of repetition, because of being there day in and day out. And, maybe changing the world could be something small. Maybe for you, it's like one customer that comes into your restaurant a day leaves so happy that it's changed their perspective on food. Whatever. Things at a small scale, I think, matter a lot more than we give them credit for. And we try to act like because we have these big numbers that, we're the morally superior party. Like, we can save more people. Mm-hmm. But when it's about that many people, maybe localized solutions could do a better job.
I think we do need more of that. I think we do.
Maybe it's at a state level instead of at a national level. Maybe we realize, I don't think masks are going to be the next thing, but if we had a U.S. mask distributor that we relied 100% on,
that we pay a little bit more, right? Because it's going to cost a little bit more, right? I'm okay with that.
I think it's absolutely worth it. You pay for what you get.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have too much cheap, shitty things. We need less, probably more quality things that we keep and probably maintain
for generations. And one of my mentors, George Bruno, gave some fantastic I was at a workshop that he did, and he was giving some fantastic thought on, what things will your kids keep when you pass away? And he was naming the items that he kept from like his father and his parents are still around. He was naming things that like, it was like his friend's father passed away and she gave him a pipe, and he's like a pipe smoker. And it was like a pipe is something. He thought about how old the pipe was. It was over 100 years old. How many generations of her family had been through. That guy probably smoked that pipe on the night that this happened in 1918. On the night that this happened in 1945. That something with that much of a legacy and a story behind it. He kept, I think, one of his grandparents' writing desks or something like that. And that was something that you'd pass down for generations. I don't know where my grandfathers went, but when we helped them sell the house, my grandfather passed away before I was born. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know that could be a family heirloom. I didn't have an idea that I should keep it. Maybe we got some of their antiques, but I didn't understand like what things are legacy, what things will you pass down, what things do you want to hand to the next people. And I think that with the mindset that we have that everything is cheap and dispensable,
right,
end up with less and less of this good stuff. And it doesn't mean that you need to take all of the extra dishware in your house and dump it on your kids. But if you can pass down a couple of cast iron pans whenever you're done using them, maybe when you get your next set and they've been in the family for a while, that'll tell a really good story.
I've been watching NHK World, which is Japanese state. I think it's state-run. I don't know, funded. There's a television station in English, and today they actually had a segment on about making egg dumplings for, like, and they're little cast irons, and they're using copper. And it was all about the copper industry in Japan. And they still make it there in Japan. Handmade. And the guy's like, this is passed down to me by my grandfather. And it still has the patina on it. He cleans it every time he pulls it out. And he's very fucking proud of that.
Yeah.
My grandfather died last year. And I took over his house. And I had to go through a lot of his stuff. There were some things that I took. He never handed to me. But I took it upon myself, like, I'm going to hold on to this. And we should do more of that.
Absolutely, and it's for the right things. You don't if you're coming out your grandfather's house and you see a box of 1,000 plastic spoons, like, come on. And we get in that mindset where it becomes easier to dispose of certain things than it does to make things that last for life. And I think that's the only way for America to compete with some of these globalized industries where China can do it cheaper and it gives you a false positive half the time. Let's just do it right.
Look what Corey says, man. He's like, I feel like we ordered America off of Wish.com. That's so true.
Misshapen. You thought it was going to be something else.
Oh, man, that's so true. I mean, think about it. It's like I'm looking around for something that's crappy that we don't really hand over to our kids.
Your computer right now, it'll be obsolete.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, that absolutely. We understand.
My most valuable stuff is electronics. I'm looking at most of my valuable technology.
Yes,
it's not going to be worth anything.
That's true.
Kids.
So we can't.
Kids won't fight over your TV.
No, who's going to fight over my Atari? Maybe now because it's worth something. But remember comic books, right? We would fight over that. If I have comic books that are in my attic.
I have a small collection of Life magazines that were from my father and other people that he happened to have from like the 1930s. Ads where the doctors said you should smoke cigarettes, like all that kind of stuff. And those are something that might not be a family heirloom, but an episode of Life magazine from the 30s costs $30 to $50 on Amazon. People complete collections of them. They get all these different. It's very cool to look back in time like that. And I think my mom, I have to give her credit. She's done a fantastic job at being kind of like an archivist for both sides of my family, keeping family documents, books, passports, papers from when they moved to the country up until more of the modern stuff. And, I realized when my dad passed away when I was a kid that I was kind of the next in kin to understand his half of the family. And, I'm the oldest son of the oldest son of the oldest son of a guy that moved here from Greece and started a business. And 4 generations later, you got another Greek dude that looks like him with the same mustache with a business. And, on the mom's side of the family, her 102-year-old grandmother just passed away 4 or 5 months ago, and in December. And, she had generations of her family, such legacy. This woman had, I think, a dozen great-great-grandchildren or something like that. She was already the great-great-grandchildren. I was just one of her great-grandchildren. But, the way the generations work and having a big family, and she only had 4 kids, but for her to have like 50 plus grandkids and family reunion on that side would be just like a massive 100, 200 person event. My dad's side of the family had a family reunion for the first time ever. There were 20 or 30 people at it. I was the only guy that looked like I was carrying that many Kellis genes left. It was very cool that we had that, and I got to meet like my great aunt Stamatia, who was like 92, and they showed this old family photo, and she was the baby, and now she's like oldest. And it was just very cool to see that we did an event like that. And I actually grew my mustache out because of that. My father was very well known for his mustache during his radio.
Can we see pictures of him?
Broadcasting. Just type in my name again. You saw him on Google earlier in the episode.
George Kellis. Okay, I'm not showing it to you because for some reason your video cuts out. Your audio cuts out. Okay, I think this is him. I'm going to bring it in. Hold on. Is that him?
Oh, yeah. Look at the top left over there with the...
This ain't him.
With the curly hair and the mustache.
This is him?
Yep.
Holy crap. That's more like... Oh, he's on video on YouTube.
Oh, this is my video.
Oh, this is your video. Okay.
This will be on George Kellis' YouTube channel. That's my channel.
I'm going to pause it. I see what the problem is with the Skype. For some reason, the audio is off when I switch to the screen mode, but okay. How about that, man? Oh, that you guys do. So do you have curly hair?
It gets pretty wavy. It's a little bit more like my mom. It's in between my mom's and my dad's. It's not as curly as his. He would just like go to the beach every summer with his friends, and he would come back with an afro in the 70s with such a dark Greek tan that people were just very confused about his race.
What culture do you think has a phenomenal gift of gab? Is it the Greeks?
Oh man, the Greeks are up there.
What about the Irish? The Jews, Irish? What about
Irish?
British?
Are just good at talking mad smack when they're drunk. Just kidding. I don't really know that much about the Irish. I'm part Irish to some degree, but the Greeks are really, really good at it. And they used to have a thing where they would go hang out in the cul-de-sac or on the roundabout, and all the old dudes would bring their chairs and they go and talk philosophy or they go talk debate while drinking and smoking all night. So the Greeks are known for going way back on their philosophy.
That's true,
as far
right?
as speaking goes, they had the orators. They had people that would be public speakers. That was like a profession in ancient Greece. You go and be an orator.
Right.
And speak it.
Yeah. So that's also one of the themes of one of the influences of the mod movement. And for the lack of a better term, we didn't know what name to give it. It was a lot from Stoicism, you know.
I've got my copy of Daily Stoic sitting over there on the couch.
Yeah, me too, somewhere here. And you know, I read that. That's my form of meditation and getting some ideas and seeing how we can apply it. I think one of the things my brother Gerald, who was listening earlier, he's like, I think part of the Stoicism, the classic version of it is there is a not a requirement, but there is a part of it that is okay with suicide, right?
Sure. I mean, there's different theories on suicide. Albert Camus is an absurdist, or Albert, I think it's Albert. Camus is an absurdist, and he said you get one of three options. Either you have a god and believe in him, you are God and believe in yourself, or you kill yourself. And that was like, everybody's like, what? What does that mean? But it kind of has like a theory behind it on, you know, what are you willing to submit to? Yeah. How powerful are you willing to see yourself? And if you're not willing to either submit to a god or say, holy crap, I'm powerful, but I also got to like manage this and take responsibility for this, then you end up being directionless and lost, and those people have a hard time.
How do you feel about euthanasia?
As long as they grow up healthy, then they'll be fine. They'll take over the next generation of commerce in Asia, and then.
Are you kidding me? I haven't smiled yet. I'm waiting for this.
Youth in Asia? What? No, so self-suicide. So medically administered suicide. I think 100%. Not that people should do it, but they should have the option.
It should be a really last result, right?
I mean, if you're suffering, and here's the sad thing is, the second you kill yourself, like thousands of Christians are just like, he's in hell. Yeah. And that's not very cool. Not sensitive, not respectful. Don't make fun of people that are dead like that. You can crack a joke, but like that's not cool.
Yeah.
I'd say that, like if somebody's in pain and they want to pass away, I don't even think we have to call it. The thing is, reason why it has to be called medically assisted suicide is because if it was called anything else, it would end up getting classified as murder. And then would it be the doctor that's responsible for your murder? Would it be the machine that's responsible for your murder? No, it would be the doctor that programmed the machine, the manufacturer. So they have to. It has to be like you have to like consent to it basically. And I don't think that somebody should be forced to pull a trigger. But from what I understand, methods like lethal injection are pretty humane.
I think. What the Stoics could apply to that idea now is that if you were in a medical situation where there's your what do you call it? Your life. What do they call that? I just blanked out. The pleasure of your life. What do you call that?
Livelihood.
Yeah, your livelihood is just horrible. Like nothing can be done medically, and you're just constantly in pain. It's a horrible way of existence. I think at that point you've tried everything you can. You're in a personal physical hell, constantly being tortured in your body. But it's, man, it's very few people that probably get to that level, right?
I mean, let's say you were in a car crash and you were paralyzed from the neck down. Would you spend the rest of your life in a hospital bed not being able to do anything besides move your face, having somebody else wipe your butt? And then I personally, I would not. If I was fully paralyzed and I couldn't really do much, maybe 6 months later, my brain would adapt and I'd find a way to live with it, which is what they say, you adapt to stuff. But personally, I would want at least the option to be, I think people in that scenario should be given the option to opt out of life. I don't think that, we'll get into this on a different episode,
sure.
But my guy for a presidential election, he's going to be the vice president nominee under the Libertarian ticket. And his name is Zoltan Istvan. He's from
Zoltan.
He's from the Transhumanist Party. So this is my pick in 2016, and it's going to be my pick, whoever they pick for
Zoltan.
I'm a libertarian. Zoltan Istvan, Istvan.
East.
This guy's pretty sharp with it, and the Transhumanist Party talks about what rights would look like in the future, assuming that we kind of evolve and merge with technology. Which, if you got Alexa smart home in your house, then you're all about the smart home technology, and Google's probably listening to you right now. But
I see him. Man, he looks like he's got a strong look, man.
Yeah, Zoltan is from San Fran. He's a tech entrepreneur, and basically the transhumanists think that we're going to hit this point of extropy where things get so fast and new things are like created so quickly, and we have so many things creating things that we get to this point where we hit the singularity, abundance happens, self-driving cars, and we end up with like a wealth of, So, they think that in the future things are going to be much better, that technology is going to radically improve the human experience, and they fight for things like choice to your own life. They want people to be able to choose if they want to live longer or turn themselves off and be turned back on later on. They want people to choose if and when they die, and they want to treat death like a preventable disease. Mm-hmm. So, I really like what they're doing. Personally, I think my views are more moderate, more libertarian, but I like that the Transhumanist Party, I think they're the party of science. I had somebody try to argue to me earlier, the Republicans are so
anti-science.
They're so anti-science that we're the party of science. And I'm like, no, you're not. I'm like, you don't just get to create any social whatever the heck you want and force it on everybody and tell us that that's science. That's not science. We've just hit the slippery slope of one party trying to be like that scientific party, the other party being like, it just devolves. And I think that, parties like the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, the Transhumanists, anybody's going to be more concerned with science because they're going to be smaller parties. They're going to be representative of less people. They're going to be things that are more thought out. And if you read through things like the Transhumanist Bill of Rights, they're basically saying, like, with these changing technologies, how do we protect ourselves? How do we make sure that people can live lives where we're not enslaved by a robot overlord? And, I think that
I see it.
These things are a little bit far off. None of this stuff's happening tomorrow.
Jesus, they believe in cyborgs, right?
They believe in cyborgs' rights, which means that if you want to become a cyborg and get a cybernetic eye or a crazy super sniffer, you're allowed to modify.
Crazy super sniffer, huh?
Oh yeah. You can call yourself a nose after that. They call that in the perfume industry as a nose, which means that you can distinguish between like 70 or 80 different types of plant-based oils.
Wow. Oh, maybe there'll be a sommelier, right?
Ooh, you could get the gene to be like a wine taster.
Jesus, that's okay. Could these people fight in MMA? I mean, what type of class do you put them in and stuff?
Whatever you want.
Okay, well, it's going to get complicated, but we'll have to cross that bridge when you come to it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in a tournament, there might be like the Cyborg League and the non-Cyborg League, and then everybody watches the cyborgs because traditional old men, that's boring. They can't even. All they can do is dunk and shoot threes. They can't even jump all the way across the field and like. Swim through the hoop like
things you have to change, man.
Change is coming on the horizon. It's a little bit naive to think too far out, but I think that with the traditional parties considering taking us back to the Stone Age, that we should at least keep our minds open to third party opinions at the very least.
I'm open to it, even if they don't win. I think they introduce conversations that some people really need to hear.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, if you hear two sides of the perspective, so many people had somebody a couple days ago say, oh, well, I know only one ticket's going to win, so I'm going to vote that ticket. Somebody else is like, oh, I know you're not going to change your mind, so I'm not going to try to convince you. Man, the other parties will at least hear you out. And I mean, dude, I was surprised at how much both progressives and Trump supporters gave a shit at actually trying to explain their views to me back in 2016, 2017. I really didn't get where either of them were coming from. And I had pleasant experiences with both. I was like, wow, these are different options.
Things have changed a lot now.
Yeah, they're MAGA Republicans instead of traditional Republicans, and then you have progressives instead of the traditional Dems. I don't think any of these groups really want humanity to suffer. They all want the best for us. They just, have different ways of articulating it and expressing it. And if you only listen to one single source, just like we all love making fun of Fox News, I mean,
or
you can't.
CNN or all the different
CNN. CNN got to Fox tier. I mean, at this point, it's arguable if any of these news outlets are not owned by China, but that's none of my business.
Yeah. So I'm also
my network. So
have you heard of the Feilong? It's a practice from China that got banned in China. Falun Gong. Let me read it for you. It's a Chinese religious practice that combines the belief in gods, meditation, and Qigong exercise with moral philosophy centered on the tenets of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. And they were practicing in China. I think it grew too fast, or maybe there's some things I'm not aware of right now, but the CCP cracked down on it and jailed a lot of people and persecuted a lot of them. So they left the country. A lot of them did, right? Including the leader who started it.
Okay. Wow.
And have you heard of the what's the name of the dance that's around that you see a lot? It's called
the floss?
No, it's the Shenyun.
Shenyun.
You've seen the billboards, right? Watch. I'm going to go back to my screen, Shenyun, and I'm going to go. All right, hold on a second. Let me see. I'm going to go to images. I'm going to go to the screen so you can see, but you probably won't be able to hear. Billboard. You'll know it when I show it to you. Here it is. Haven't you seen these?
Oh, yeah.
They're all over the country.
That's cool.
So, who's behind that? I didn't know that. Is the Falun Gong group. Falun Gong group. The religious. Huh. They're using this as for lack of a better term, the mouthpiece for their philosophy.
Huh.
And this show is getting banned in different parts of the world because the CCP has influences on other countries to say, hey, we don't want you to play them or let them play in your theater. It's incredible.
Like that. I mean, China is growing so fast and they have so many foreign investments. I mean, there was a book that came out a few years ago, Africa, China's second continent.
Absolutely,
and they're rapidly buying up things like gold. They're rapidly buying up land resources. China's growing.
Building the infrastructure.
Just the thing that bothers me about China is that I don't think they care enough about the earth and the other people. They're willing to push communism and push their country forward at any cost, far surpassing what the U.S. does. We put like 4% of the plastic waste into the oceans. They put like 50% or something. It's crazy. They pollute the oceans. They're willing to pollute the earth with this disease. Dude, you can't trust their government. And what if the Chinese populace had the privilege of living somewhere where they grew up with more liberties, where they grew up hearing the truth, and where they could develop their own opinions. Right. They could have their own media. They could put the stuff out that they want. But instead, I think there's just, it's limited. It's not North Korea, but man, like give people the information. If you can't give them an open access to the internet in any degree, then you're a shitty country.
My friend John said, he asked, how do you feel about, he says, don't watch cable news. What he says, you should watch broadcast news. How do you feel about broadcast news's biasness?
I don't understand so cable news, what's the difference?
CBS, NBC, ABC, maybe even NPR. Maybe, but I'm sure NPR would be considered more liberal.
I mean, there are some good NPR shows, but besides that, most of that list are sources that I would generally avoid. If somebody links a good article, like, yes, I'll read it. I'll look at the sources. Does it link to something actual, or is it just somebody's opinion? Like, what kind of piece is it? Understand what you're reading before you try to interpret it. I think that you have to be in a position where you're getting different sides of a story. And you can do that even if you talk to three friends that have differing political opinions at different times and get their take on the same story. And, everybody does their research, which is usually nothing, and just hearing other people's opinions. So, people develop their opinions differently. And it's not necessarily a bad thing with so much misinformation out there. But if you can't find at least three perspectives on one subject, you don't have enough.
Yeah. We call that the echo chamber, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Two perspectives is not enough, despite what major political parties might think.
Is it possible to be honest with ourselves and say, what I believe is right might not be right for everyone else?
100%. And that's why earlier I said that I like the idea of letting people choose whether they went back to work or whether they self-quarantined.
Yeah, I think that's healthy.
Yeah, I mean, dude, we could have solved a lot of problems.
It can get complicated. A boss could say, "Hey, listen, I need your ass into work." I was like, "No, I'm choosing to stay, but I still want my money." I mean, that could get complicated, right?
It could definitely get complicated, and there's no one size fits all solution at a level that's so national. It's just such a big level. We're the third largest country on earth population wise, and I don't think that there's a way to make one size fit all. And I think that breaks down into where you're getting your information from too. Mm-hmm. I like to have different programs, different hosts. I like to have different friends with different opinions and ask them what they think about it. Sometimes I even get on Facebook and get flamed by people that don't share my opinion and find out what other people think.
Do you see the comment there from John?
Only the broadcast news programs are mandated by law not to intentionally distort information. Cable news doesn't fall under this jurisdiction.
Before you respond, John worked for CBS for years in Dallas, and so he got a lot of experience. And I don't know enough to validate that, but what do you think about that?
I mean, if they're mandated by law not to intentionally distort,
I didn't know that.
It sounds like they are they're connected to the government. Only the government could mandate that they are not allowed to distort information. So I'm guessing the government funds them in some capacity. I think that could be a better solution, but the distortion of the truth and the presentation of facts are two different things. I'm glad that they're not distorting the truth, because so many news outlets are just using us for emotional fodder to get clicks and views. But on the other hand of it, I think that it could be much better than traditional news. I'm not sure how accurate it is, but people could still distort facts.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you could still present a fact in a way that makes people draw a conclusion that's not actually true. And I think that it's up to us to kind of learn when things are misleading, and to be skeptical generally, and to say, is that true? To ask ourselves, are we just taking this on assumption? Are we taking it at face value? And I think that a lot of it is left to us to decide from what we're hearing if it's true or not. Just because Fox News says something, just because CNN says something, does not mean that it's incorrect. That's the fallacy. Just because something is found to be fallacious, maybe just because it's from a news source that is allowed to distort the
doesn't
image,
mean everything they say is wrong.
Right. And you could get something right with the wrong method too. And I think a lot of people and a lot of issues will agree on things. They just won't agree on the method. And I think the worst thing that you can do is put yourself in a scenario where you can't get new information coming in, and you filled yourself with that echo chamber, and you use that to fuel emotions. And I don't think that many people do that. I think that's a really select thing, where people put themselves in echo chambers and then scream at people online or in stores or anywhere else. And because we have cameras, that's what we see now. Yeah. Because we want people to be outraged. We want to see how strongly somebody believes that you shouldn't be allowed to leave your house and conduct business, because millions of people will die. You want millions of people to die or to save the economy? Come on. It's not like that.
Do you see what John says?
FCC license allows them to use public airwaves, invoke laws to protect the public. Use critical thinking skills. Some schools are now teaching students to see how to find bias in stories. That is a good point. We never learned about fallacies in school. I had to learn that on the internet myself. If they ask if the news title ends with a question, the answer is no, and we just want you to believe that this is a statement. It's a trap, man.
That's true.
Is Donald Trump a Martian?
Or is the water you're drinking going to kill you? Check in at 10 o'clock tonight.
If the thing is, if there was an answer, there wouldn't be a story.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. And different things that would allow us to see when these biases come up. Don't take everything for face value. Again, you got to be skeptic. You got to be a little bit skeptic about anything. If somebody tells me they are 100% sure that God does not exist, I say, how do you know? And they never have concrete
Bible.
Proof. No. If somebody says 100% that God exists, I just dismiss them as delusionally optimistic on something. And if somebody says 100% chance that God doesn't exist, you're double delusionally optimistic. At least they're like, how do you get to a 0% chance?
We just jumped on we've been on politics. Now we're getting on religion. I think we should talk about gender rights and stuff like that. Let's just piss off everyone, because there's some people in our group that are watching that I know that have a strong position on it, and I'm okay with that. And their family, and I love them, and we're okay. But just be ready for some comments probably about that.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, critique it. Don't take what I said at face value. Maybe I'm dumb.
Hey, when we all die, we'll find out the truth. But maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just a blackness, a void. Nothing. We don't even process what we're fucking experiencing. So
that'd be a bummer. Then you can't even tell somebody I told you so if you really
I feel like you're going to lie. I told you, motherfucker.
There's the void, you asshole.
Take that. Yeah, I don't think that's possible, But I feel like every time a family member dies, I think about the moments right after. Like, they probably died let's say 10 minutes ago, right? because they were in the hospital. They probably discovered something and they can't communicate back.
Yeah. What a bummer. What a bummer.
That's incredible. And then some of them spent their whole life being religious and being maybe extremely religious, hating gays and this and that. And some of them might be atheists like me. It's like, holy shit, I was wrong.
Yeah. I mean, dude, be real though. Science and empirical evidence trumps everything. If God appeared right now in our live stream, I'm not answering that question.
Dude, this ain't Joe Rogan.
Ain't Joe Rogan.
That's a Joe Rogan question. I ain't even
that's
ready.
That's an instant no. Don't need to explain. If you disagree with me, you could fight me.
I wouldn't fight a trans woman female, and I'm a dude. I'm gonna get my ass kicked.
I can't fight MMA at all. I get my ass kicked. If a dude wants to come cross-dress and come kick my ass, I'll be right here. No, I'm just kidding. But I think that maybe in the future there would be different leagues, but I don't think you can distort gender to win in sports like that. That is a little scummy. Regardless, I mean, you could listen to these topics and agree with us, disagree with us all day. I think that every topic is up for debate. I think we should be willing to chat about different things. I think we should be willing to take different opinions for different periods of time. I remember I was like, I did a thought experiment. I was like, what if I believed something completely different from one of my innermost beliefs for 15 minutes? And 2 seconds into it, I was like, holy crap, I've been lying to myself about this forever. And I was like, man, it was so much more obvious. 1 second in, I didn't take 15 minutes to get me to realize, like, oh shit, everything adds up when I calculate this backwards when I do it in reverse. And sometimes you'll surprise yourself.
I'm in the belief that it's possible that we're in a virtual reality and we're gonna wake up from in this machine. And we're like, dude, how the hell was your experience? Like, dude, I was a fucking Greek guy from West Virginia. Like, no shit, I was a Mexican American who's, still didn't want to grow up at his age. And it was pretty shitty at times, but I've learned that, you got to make the best of it. And then that's when that experience was a lot better. Yeah,
no, I think that if we all had a similar mindset where we just, who knows if any of this is real, and we want to have a good life. We want other people to have a good life. Man, it's easy to get caught up in this dogmatic thinking, but opinions are so worthless.
Of course, gender plays a role in sports. Men would dominate nearly every sport. Absolutely.
I gave an example earlier of men playing basketball. This is like a Ben Shapiro quote. Ben was like, the reason why that WNBA isn't popular is because people would rather watch the men do slam dunks and shoot threes than watch the ladies shoot layups. And I'm just saying that once we got cyborgs, dude, they're going to be flying when they're playing basketball. Nobody's going to go back to watching the NBA.
No, you're right.
The cyborg league is going to top everything.
Athletes are the exception. No compete
because of the hormone imbalance. I think so. I mean, yeah, like I could see that people want to have different gender roles and they want to hold different gender roles. I don't think that should allow. I don't think the biological gender should allow them to compete in a different league, especially where they have an advantage, especially where they're gonna have 50 times the testosterone of a woman in the same position. You're gonna have that upper body strength, and I think it's just as bad as allowing a non-transgender biological male to compete in that sport and basically just beat up some chicks. Like that is just as bad as that. I mean, should she compete with the dudes? Maybe not. Maybe there's not enough people to have a trans wrestling league yet, but nothing's all inclusive for everybody. There's not going to be a wheelchair wrestling league. Please, for the love of God, don't have a wheelchair wrestling league. Nobody wants to see these kids hurt each other.
Like, all right, is there a sport? Let me throw this out to the audience. Is there a sport where women, if they ever had to play against the men, would dominate? A sport.
Oh man,
what sport would that be? Gymnastics?
I was trying to think of a sexist joke, but I was still like,
I could see that going sexist probably.
No, I think that men and women naturally have their own advantages and disadvantages. I mean, men have got the upper body strength. What does that mean? You protect the family. A woman has more color receptors in her eyes.
Pong.
Ping pong.
Wait,
is that true?
Wait, is that?
I mean, men and women are naturally gifted at their own things, and I think that's kind of the beauty of the duality of masculinity.
Absolutely, we need each other.
It's exactly, and one of my mentors says they're complementary. They're not. It's not this or that. It's not. Dude, people are trying to like push this androgynous future. Dude, if you're a man, if you identify as a man and you hope to be masculine as well, and somebody looks at you and can't tell what your gender is, I mean, it's not necessarily wrong, but I want to be the dude that looks like the Greek god, not the dude that looks like he's just been in his room wanking it for 16 years, like never seeing a lick of sunlight. Like I want the tan, I want the chiseled abs, I want to get bigger.
Yeah,
I want to get.
Love that.
That's like part of being a man. For women, there are things that they can do for the family that the man cannot do. Maybe, what was it? I think it was like a divorce lawyer. She was saying like she gave out 5 or 6 questions that when posed to the mother in court, she could answer them, but the dad couldn't answer a single question.
Like, what's your child's favorite toy or what?
Yeah, like what does your child like care about in this sense or that sense? But when they ask questions like, what does your kid want to be when they grow up? Only the dad knew.
Wow, so those are different things of interest by the different parties, right?
Yeah, and they're just topics of interest. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a positive thing.
Yeah, it's fine. I've asked my sister that. I'm sure that my sister has a different connection than my brother-in-law does to the kids, and she knows which one's their favorite toys. She knows which ones because she spends more time with them, and it's incredible the connection that different parents could have with their children.
Yeah, and I think everybody understands the connection between mother and child and how important that is.
There's something deeper there because they spend 9 months living with them like an alien in their body.
I mean, literally, like the amount of caregiver time from the primary caregiver that the child receives between birth and 3 will affect the IQ of the child by up to like 3 or 4 points.
Now, is there data supporting this?
Probably.
I don't know. I'm just as an interviewer, I probably should ask these questions, right?
Good point. I mean, I can't really bring cited information onto the show,
sure,
but I think that one's worth some looking into. I've heard that
the sunlight coming down on me. It's coming down.
I got to run. I had one of my friends roll in a few minutes ago, and gonna go hang out. But would like to begin the discussion online or off. And yeah, man, glad that you're throwing them out there. And
George, where can people connect with you? Because you're doing a lot of stuff online as well, and I think your energy is amazing. And where can people connect with you?
You can find me on most major social networks as George Kellis, George, last name Kellas. On Facebook, I believe on Facebook /GKellis. Facebook.com/GKellis. GKellis. I believe so.
GKellis. Okay, I'm going to share that on the page here. I was teasing my wife, telling her I created the kids and she grew them.
Plant the seed.
So sexist. Yeah, George, you do have a great voice, man.
Thanks, guys.
You got a deep voice. It must be the mustache. It kind of creates the how your voice resonates.
Yeah, totally. My voice was the same before.
All right, George, we're going to do this again, right?
Hell yeah.
I think you have a unique way of speaking. Even if people disagree with you, I feel like I need a sun visor. I think even if people disagree with you, I think you're like a Ben Shapiro. You have a response for everything, and you're very eloquent. I'm no Ben Shapiro. I can't speak that fast or that eloquent. I'm being challenged with facts and information, but you're pretty good at that, man.
I try, man, and just love discussing it. And it's not so much about being right or wrong, but about challenging myself and really pushing the next level of, was this really my belief the whole time?
Yeah,
about tricking myself.
I need to be humble about that, especially if I'm doing this video stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm putting myself out there. I can easily either slip up with what I'm going to say, or I could say something that I didn't really think well enough into, or maybe I feel differently later. And so this is an experiment for myself. Like, am I willing to put myself out there and be wrong?
Yeah,
and I have to be okay with that.
Some critique for this. Like, Facebook gets to see our faces. Facebook gets to run their algorithm to see if we're lying using voice and face detection. Like, that exists, and if it doesn't now, it's going to soon.
George, can you tell everyone your mother's maiden name?
Wait a minute.
Your favorite dog? Your first grade teacher?
Last bat I ate.
All right, George. Have a great day, man. We'll be talking soon, right?
Thanks for tuning in. See you,
All right, guys. See you later.